The rain of the station never stopped. It tapped softly on the metal windows, a fake weather system meant to calm the many species living inside Orbital Hub 7. Jake Miller stood alone in the late shift lab, checking power readings and cleaning. Tools. He was a human contractor, nothing special, just someone who fixed things when they broke. Jake liked the quiet hours. No crowds, no questions. Just the low hum of machines and the soft blue lights of the station. That calm ended when the door slid open behind him. She stepped inside, without making a sound. Her name was Lyra. She was not human. Lyra looked mostly human at first glance. She had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a slim frame. But her eyes were too large, her skin had a faint silver glow, and thin glowing lines moved slowly along her neck like living stars. She wore a simple research uniform, loose and plain, marked with the symbol of the Galactic Science Union. Jake turned and froze. Hello, he said. Lyra tilted her head. Human Jake, good, you are here. She spoke basic well, but her words were very exact, very careful, as if she had learned them from books, not people. Jake nodded. Yeah, night shift? Something broken? No. Lyra said, something confusing. That should have been his first warning. She walked closer, holding a small datapad in both hands. Her eyes moved fast as she read, then looked up at Jake, then back down again. Her face showed deep focus, like a child trying to solve a hard puzzle. I am studying human survival traits, she said. Your species grows fast, you heal fast. You adapt faster than most. Jake scratched the back of his head. That's nice? Lyra did not smile. It is also frightening to the council. Jake laughed a little. Figures. She stepped even closer now, close enough that Jake could see tiny lights moving under her skin. He leaned back without thinking. According to my data, Lyra continued, human young consume milk from their mothers. Jake blinked. Yeah, that's normal. Lyra's eyes widened. Yes, that is clear. She paused. Too long. However, she said slowly, the data also states that milk contains important growth materials. Jake nodded. Sure. Lyra tapped her datapad again, then looked up with honest confusion. Then why, she asked, do adult human males still possess the same milk-producing structures? The lab went very quiet. Jake's brain stopped working for a full second. I'm sorry, he said. What? Lyra raised the datapad higher. Here, human anatomy scans. Very clear. Jake felt his face heat up. That doesn't mean, Lyra leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper filled with wonder. You mean human males have milk too? Jake nearly dropped his tool. No, we do not, he said quickly. Lyra frowned. But the structures are present. That doesn't mean they work, Jake said, waving his hands. It's just how biology develops. Same base design. Different function. Lyra stared at him, clearly not satisfied. Then why, she asked carefully, does the data say stimulation can activate? Stop. Jake said louder than he meant to. The word echoed slightly in the lab. Lyra jumped back, startled. I am sorry. Did I offend? Jake took a deep breath. No, you're not offending. It's just complicated. Lyra looked embarrassed now, her glowing lines dimming a little. I am trying to understand humans correctly. My last report caused issues. That caught Jake's attention. What kind of issues? She hesitated. That was new. The council believes humans hide dangerous traits. They think your kindness is a mask. Jake felt a cold weight in his chest. That's not true. I know, Lyra said quickly. That is why I am here. Alone. Jake looked at her, really looked at her. She was not teasing, not joking, just confused. And maybe scared. You should be careful what you study, he said. People up there don't like surprises. Yes, Lyra said softly. That is why I came to ask a human directly." Before Jake could respond, the lab lights flickered. A soft mechanical voice filled the room. "Unauthorized research activity detected." Jake's stomach dropped. Lyra's eyes went wide. "They are scanning. Scanning for what?" Jake asked. "For me," she said. "And for you." The door behind them locked with a sharp hiss. Jake looked from the sealed door to Lyra, then to the ceiling sensors slowly turning toward them. All this, he thought, because of one stupid question. Lyra looked at him, fear clear on her face now. "Human Jake," she said. "I believe my confusion may have placed you in danger." Jake swallowed, then straightened his shoulders. "Yeah," he said. "Seems like it." Outside the lab, boots hit metal floors. Security was coming, and Jake realized this night was about to change his life forever. The red warning lights painted the lab walls in slow, blinking shadows. Jake stood still, listening to the heavy sound of boots outside the sealed door. Security patrols. Station guards, not friendly people during night shift. Lyra stepped closer to him. Her glowing skin lines flickered faster now, a clear sign of fear. "I did not plan this," she said quietly. "My research was meant to protect humans, not endanger them." Jake exhaled slowly. Panic would not help. Humans survived worse than locked doors. "Okay," he said, lowering his voice. "First rule of being human in trouble, don't panic." "That is a rule?" Lyra asked. "Yeah, a good one." The security scanner beam swept across the door again. A flat mechanical voice spoke. "Researcher Lyra of the Varelian Union, step out and submit your data." Lyra's shoulders dropped. "If they take my data, they will twist it. They always do." Jake glanced around the lab. Tools, cables, emergency vents. "What exactly were you researching?" he asked. Lyra hesitated, then lifted her datapad. "Human bonding behaviors, care, protection of non-kin." Jake frowned. "Why that?" "Because," Lyra said, "humans risk themselves for strangers. That is rare." Another scan passed over the door. "Last warning," the voice said. Jake moved before thinking. He pulled Lyra gently toward a narrow service panel behind a storage rack. "There's a crawl space," he whispered. "Hold maintenance path. They don't scan it well." Her eyes widened. "You would hide me?" Jake shrugged. "Guess." So, that surprised her more than the alarms. Inside the crawl space, it was dark and tight. Metal pressed close on all sides. Jake slid the panel back into place, just as the lab door opened with a loud clang. 3 security officers entered. Tall, armored, not human. Jake stepped out from behind a console, hands raised. "Evening," he said casually. "Something wrong?" One guard's visor focused on him. "You are not authorized for this section." "I fix power lines," Jake said. "Power lines go everywhere." The guards scanned the room. Their sensors hummed. Lyra held her breath in the crawl space. She could hear Jake's heart pounding through the thin metal. "Where is researcher Lyra?" the guard asked. Jake met its gaze. "No idea. Just me here." Silence stretched. Finally, the guard lowered its weapon. "We will return." The boots moved away. The door sealed again. Jake waited a full minute before opening the panel. Lyra crawled out slowly, eyes shining. "You lied," she said. "Yeah," Jake replied. Another human skill. She studied him with deep focus. "Why would you risk punishment for me?" Jake thought for a moment, because it felt wrong not to. That answer confused her more than any biology chart. They moved to a quiet corner of the lab. Lyra sat on a crate, pulling her knees close, a very human posture. "I asked a question." "That embarrassed you," she said, "yet you protected me." Jake leaned against a table. "Humans don't judge intent as much as action." "You weren't trying to hurt anyone." She nodded slowly. The council does not think that way, Jake sighed. Yeah, bureaucrats rarely do. Lyra looked down at her datapad. They believe humans are dangerous because you feel deeply. Anger, love, shame, curiosity. She looked up at him. Even your reaction to my question was emotional. Jake chuckled weakly. You picked a bad example. No, Lyra said firmly. A perfect one. She stood and faced him. You were embarrassed. But you did not react with violence, you explained. You tried to protect me. Jake felt uncomfortable being studied like this. I think the council is afraid, Lyra continued. Not of your bodies, but of your choices. A low vibration ran through the station. Announcement lights flashed briefly. Jake's wrist console beeped. Great, he muttered. What is happening? Lyra asked. Station lockdown, Jake said. Means someone important is nervous. Lyra's glowing lines dimmed. They will isolate this sector next. Jake rubbed his face. Then we need to move. Where? She asked. Jake smiled slightly. Somewhere humans aren't supposed to go. As they slipped into the maintenance corridor, alarms echoing behind them, Lyra realized something important. Her most dangerous discovery about humans was not their strength. It was their willingness to stand between danger and someone who did not belong. And the council was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The maintenance corridor was cold and narrow. Pipes ran along the walls like metal veins, humming softly as energy moved through the station. Jake walked in front, holding a small repair light. Lyra followed close behind, careful not to make noise. This place was not meant for civilians. Only humans used it now, mostly because no one else wanted to crawl through tight metal tunnels. This area is unpleasant, Lyra said quietly. Jake smiled a little. Yeah, that's why it works. Behind them, the sounds of security faded, but the danger did not. Lockdown lights flashed red through the vents above. They stopped at a junction where 3 paths crossed. Okay, Jake whispered. We need to talk. Lyra looked at him. About? About what you're really carrying in that datapad. Her fingers tightened around it. You already know. She said softly, truth. Jake nodded. And truth scares powerful people. Lyra stepped closer to him, her glowing lines pulsing slowly. Human Jake. The council believes humans are unfinished beings. Unfinished? He repeated. Yes, she said. Most species reach emotional balance early. Humans do not. You change. You learn. You contradict yourselves. Jake let out a short laugh. Sounds about right. That is why they fear you, Lyra continued. A species that can still change can become anything. They moved again, deeper into the station's hidden paths. Jake opened the hatch and helped Lyra down a short ladder. Below them was an old observation room, dark and unused. One wide window looked out into space, stars slowly drifting past. Jake closed the hatch quietly. This room isn't on most maps, he said. Should buy us some time. Lyra walked to the window, staring at the endless black. My first report on humans was neutral, she said. They ignored it. Her voice grew heavier. My second report praised human empathy. They flagged it as dangerous. Jake frowned. Dangerous? Yes, because empathy spreads, Lyra said. You teach it without trying. She turned to face him. When I asked my embarrassing question, I was not studying anatomy. She admitted, I was watching your reaction. Jake raised an eyebrow. Seriously? You were shocked, uncomfortable, yet you did not insult me. You did not punish me. She paused. Most species would. Jake looked away uneasy. Guess we're weird. That word appears often in council files, Lyra said. Along with another, she tapped her datapad. A word appeared on the screen in bright letters. Unpredictable, the room suddenly vibrated. A deep voice echoed through the station speakers. All personnel, remain where you are. Human contractors are to be questioned. Jake clenched his jaw. That's new. They are escalating, Lyra said. That means the council has accessed my data. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. They didn't even ask you. No, Lyra agreed. They rarely ask. They decide. She stepped closer to him. Human Jake, she said carefully. If I am captured, they will erase parts of my report. What parts? He asked. The parts that say humans choose kindness even when afraid. Jake met her eyes. Then we can't let that happen. Lyra looked surprised. You are only one human, he shrugged. We're annoying like that. Suddenly, the hatch above them slid open. Light poured in. 2 armored council enforcers dropped into the room, weapons raised. Do not resist, one commanded. The human will step aside. Jake moved without thinking. He stepped in front of Lyra. The enforcers paused. That order was clear, the second said. Jake's hands shook, but his voice did not. She's a guest. You want her, you go through me. Lyra stared at his back, stunned. This makes no logical sense, the enforcer said. Jake swallowed. Yeah, humans hear that a lot. The enforcers hesitated. Their scanners flickered, confused by Jake's rising stress signals and steady stance. Lyra raised her voice. Council enforcers, she said. Record this moment. They turned toward her. This human is unarmed, she continued. Yet he stands between me and danger. This behavior appears across human history. The enforcers exchanged a silent signal. Step aside, one repeated. Jake did not move. The room felt frozen in time. Finally, a new voice came through the speakers. Calm, cold. This is Council Observer Kath. Lyra stiffened. Observer. We see your experiment clearly now, Kath said. Humans form bonds too easily. Jake looked up at the speaker. Funny. We think that's a strength. There was a pause. A species that bonds easily. Can unite quickly, Kath said. That is what we fear. Jake glanced at Lyra, then back up. Then you should be afraid. The silence that followed was heavy. Because for the first time, the council was not studying humans from a distance. They were facing one. And they were not sure what would happen next. The observation room felt smaller now. Jake could hear his own breathing, slow, heavy, human. The council observer's voice still echoed in the air, calm and sharp like a blade that did not need to move fast. A step aside is a simple action, Observer Kath said through the speakers. Refusal will be recorded. Jake did not move. Behind him, Lyra felt something she had never felt before while studying any species. Trust. Human Jake, she whispered. You do not have to do this. He answered without turning around. Yeah, I do. The enforcers raised their weapons slightly. Not fully. Not yet. Their scanners struggled to decide if Jake was a threat or just a mistake. Explain, Kath said. Why would one human risk himself for a single alien researcher? Jake swallowed. His mouth felt dry, but his mind was clear. Because she's scared, he said simply. And because you're wrong. Silence followed. That is not a logical answer, Kath replied. Jake nodded. I know. That seemed to confuse them more. Suddenly, the station shook. Not hard, but enough to break the moment. A low warning tone followed. Lyra looked up sharply. That was not planned. Jake frowned. What now? A new voice joined the channel. Fast, urgent. Observer Kath, multiple systems are lagging. Human maintenance routes are interfering with scans. Jake almost smiled. Humans built the station's hidden paths. Humans fixed what others ignored. And humans knew how to disappear inside their own work. Kath's voice hardened. Enforcers withdraw. For now, the weapons lowered. The 2 armored figures backed toward the hatch. This is not finished. Kef said, "The human will be questioned later." The connection cut, the hatch sealed. The room went quiet again. Lyra's knees weakened. She sat down slowly, pressing a hand to her chest. The glowing lines on her skin dimmed, then slowly returned to a calm rhythm. "You stood against them," she said softly, directly. Jake finally turned around. "Didn't feel heroic." "It was," Lyra said. "To me." Jake looked away, uncomfortable. "We need to move," he said. "They'll come back smarter." Lyra nodded and stood. "There is a place. A data relay chamber near the human living sector. The council avoids it." Jake laughed once. "Of course they do." They climbed back into the maintenance tunnels, moving faster now. The station felt different to Jake. Every step mattered. Every sound felt louder. As they walked, Lyra spoke quietly. "In my species," she said, "decisions are shared. No individual is expected to carry risk alone." Jake crawled through a narrow opening and helped her through. "Yeah," he said. "Humans mess that up a lot." "That is not what I observed," Lyra replied. He glanced at her. "You chose without permission," she continued. "You accepted consequences that were not yours," Jake shrugged. "Someone had to." They reached the edge of the human sector. The lights changed from cold blue to warm white. Old music played faintly from someone's room. The smell of food drifted through the air. Lyra slowed, surprised. "This area feels alive," Jake nodded. "That's humans for you." They stopped outside a small relay room. Inside were old servers, mostly ignored by the main network. "This is where I send my reports," Lyra said. "If I upload from here, the council cannot alter it immediately." Jake's heart beat faster. "Do it." She connected her data pad. Lines of light flowed into the system. "What are you sending?" Jake asked. "The truth," she said. "Not just data, stories, human actions, choices." Outside, footsteps approached again. Faster this time. Jake positioned himself by the door. "Once this uploads," Lyra said, "there's no return for me, or you." Jake did not hesitate. "Good." The upload bar reached halfway. The station. Speakers crackled. "Human Jake Miller," Kef's voice returned. "Your species often speaks of freedom. This is your chance to step away." Jake laughed quietly. "Funny thing about freedom." He looked at Lyra. She met his eyes. "We don't use it to run." The upload reached 90%. Security alarms screamed. Lyra's voice shook with emotion. "You have changed my understanding of humans completely." Jake smiled, tired but steady. "Then my job's done." The upload completed. Somewhere in the vast reaches of space, council members began to receive something they had never expected from humans. Not a threat, not a demand, but proof. And as security forces closed in, Jake knew one thing for certain. This decision, this very human choice, had already changed the future. The alarms did not stop. They screamed through the human sector, sharp and angry, bouncing off metal walls and closed doors. Red lights flashed above Jake and Lyra as security teams moved closer from every direction, but something else was spreading. Faster than the alarms. Information inside the old relay system. Lyra's report was already moving through the galactic network. Copies formed. Backups appeared. Once data spread through human systems, it was almost impossible to erase. Jake leaned against the door, breathing hard. "How long until they're here?" "Less than 2 minutes," Lyra said, checking the console. "But it is already enough." Jake looked at her. "Enough for what?" "For them to see," she said, "what humans truly are." Far away, in the high chamber of the Galactic Council, screens began to light up. At first, the council members expected charts, numbers, cold biology. Instead, they saw recordings, A human medic holding the hand of a wounded alien soldier on a battlefield that was not his war. A human engineer staying behind during an evacuation to free trapped workers of another species. A human child sharing food with an alien refugee. Smiling without fear, council members shifted uneasily. This data is emotional manipulation. One of them said. No, Lyra's recorded voice replied calmly. This is behavior. Back. In the station, Jake peeked through a narrow window. They're forming up, he said. Heavily armed. Lyra's glowing lines pulsed slowly. She looked calm now, certain. My people believe safety comes from control, she said. Humans believe safety comes from connection, Jake snorted. That's a messy belief. Yes, Lyra agreed. But powerful. The door shook as something heavy hit it. Human Jake, a voice shouted from outside. Open the door. You are surrounded. Jake didn't answer. Instead, he looked at Lyra. Any last big science discoveries you want to share? She smiled slightly. Yes, one. Another hit the door. Lyra raised her voice, speaking clearly into the relay mic. Knowing the council was still watching. Humans are dangerous, she said. Several council members leaned forward. Not because of strength, she continued. Not because of weapons. The door began to bend inward. They are dangerous because they choose empathy even when it costs them. Jake felt something tighten in his chest. Outside the door, the enforcers paused. Inside the council chamber, silence fell. A senior council member spoke. Empathy leads to chaos. No, Lyra replied. Empathy leads to alliances. She changed the feed. Now the council saw projections, futures, human-led rescue coalitions. Mixed species stations built around cooperation instead of fear. Trade routes protected by trust, not threats. You fear humans will unite others, Lyra said. You are correct. Jake laughed quietly. She's good. The door finally broke open. Armed enforcers flooded the room. On the ground, one shouted. Jake stepped forward slowly and raised his hands. Lyra did the same. But before the enforcers could move, their units crackled. Stand down, came Observer Keth's voice. The enforcers froze. What? Jake whispered. Council review in progress, Keth continued. No further forces authorized. The weapons lowered. Jake stared. Did we just win? Lyra shook her head gently. No, we were understood. The enforcers backed away. Confused but obedient. The room fell quiet again. Jake let out a long breath and sat down hard on the floor. I really hate space politics, Lyra laughed softly. It was the first true laugh Jake had heard from her. You have changed the council's discussion, she said. That is no small thing. What happens now? Jake asked. She looked at him seriously. Now they will debate for a long time. Jake groaned. Of course they will. Lyra stepped closer and looked down at him. Human Jake, she said. Your species claims to be ordinary. But ordinary beings do not stand in front of weapons for strangers. Jake shrugged. Guess we just don't think about it too much. That, Lyra said, may be your greatest strength. Outside the station window, stars drifted calmly, unaware that something important had shifted for the first time. The Galactic Council was not asking how to control humans. They were asking how to work with them. And it all started because one human chose to answer a strange question with patience, instead of fear. But the story was not over yet, because respect, once earned, always brings new challenges, and humans were about to face them. The station returned to a strange kind of calm. Alarms stopped. Red lights faded back to soft white. Security patrols moved away from the human sector, slower now, unsure. Like guards who had been given new orders, but not new understanding. Jake sat on a bench outside the relay room, hands resting on his knees. The adrenaline was leaving his body, and in its place came exhaustion. Lyra stood by the window, watching the stars. The glowing lines on her skin shone brighter than before, steady and confident. "They are still watching," she said. "But they are listening now." Jake let out a breath. "That's new." In the council chamber, debate filled the air. Some members argued that humans were too emotional to be trusted. Others pointed to the data Lyra had shared clear, repeated patterns of protection, sacrifice, and cooperation. Observer Keth stood silent, reviewing one final clip. It showed Jake standing unarmed in front of Lyra. No threat display, no aggression. Only a decision. "This behavior cannot be forced," Keth said at last. "It must be chosen." Back on the station, Jake's wrist console beeped again. A direct channel opened. "Human Jake Miller," Keth's voice said. "You are requested for testimony." Jake looked at Lyra. "That sounds serious." "It is," she said, "and rare." A holographic projection formed in front of them. Council members appeared one by one, towering figures of many shapes and forms. Jake straightened his back. "State your reason for interference," Keth said. Jake thought for a moment. Then he spoke honestly. "She needed help," he said. "That's it." The chamber grew quiet. "You acted without orders," another council member said. "Yes," Jake replied. "You risked diplomatic conflict." "Yes, you endangered yourself." Jake nodded. "Yes." Keth leaned forward slightly. "Why?" Jake met the projection's gaze. "Because if humans stop doing that, we stop being human." The words hung in the air. Lyra stepped into view beside him. "I confirm this pattern," she said. "Human morality is not commanded, it is practiced." Several council members shifted. "Your species is chaotic," one said. Jake smiled faintly. "Yeah, but we show up when it matters." Silence followed. Then Keth spoke again. "The council cannot erase what has already spread," he said. "Your actions are now public knowledge." Jake blinked. "Public?" "Across multiple systems." Keth confirmed. "Reactions are divided." Lyra turned to Jake, eyes wide. "You are already becoming a symbol," Jake groaned. "I did not sign up for that." "You never do," Lyra said gently. Keth raised a hand. "The council has reached a preliminary decision." Jake felt his heart race. "Humans will no longer be classified as a monitored species," Keth said. "You will be recognized as independent actors." Jake stared. "That's good, right?" "For some," Keth replied. "It also means expectations." Lyra nodded slowly. "They will ask more of humans now," Jake sighed. "Figures." The projection began to fade. "One final note," Keth said. "Researcher Lyra is cleared of all charges." Lyra closed her eyes in relief. "And you, human Jake," Keth added, "have forced the council to reconsider a long-held fear." The channel closed. Jake sat back heavily. "Well, that happened." Lyra looked at him with something close to awe. "You spoke for your entire species," she said. Jake shook his head. "No, I just spoke for myself." "That," Lyra said, "is exactly why it worked." Outside the station, messages spread. Other species began sharing their own stories of humans, good and bad, but always real. The truth was no longer controlled. It was alive, and somewhere deep within the galactic systems, a new understanding began to form. Humans were not perfect, but they were present. And sometimes, that was enough to change everything. Only one part of the story remained, the part where the future finally answered the question that started it all. The station was quiet in a way Jake had never felt before. Not empty, not tense, just peaceful. Days had passed since the council's decision. Human workers walked the halls like always, but something had shifted. Other species no longer looked at them with only caution. Some nodded. Some asked questions. Some simply watched with new curiosity. Jake stood by the large viewing window. hands in his pockets, staring at the stars. Lyra joined him. Her research uniform was gone. She now wore a simple travel cloak, light and practical. A sign that she was leaving. They approved my next assignment, she said softly. Open research. No supervision. Jake smiled. Guess you earned it. I did not earn it alone, she replied. They stood in silence for a moment. Do you know, Lyra continued, what the council recorded as the turning point? Jake raised an eyebrow. The part where I almost got arrested? She smiled. Slightly. No. She tapped her datapad, and a short clip played. It was her first conversation with Jake, her confused expression. Her innocent voice asking the question that had shocked him. You mean human males have milk too? Jake groaned. You kept that? Yes, Lyra said. Because your reaction mattered. On the screen, Jake did not yell. He did not threaten. He did not mock her, he explained. He felt embarrassed. And he still chose patience. The council expected anger, Lyra said. Or shame, or dominance. Jake scratched his head. All they got was awkward. Exactly, she replied. They saw restraint, humor, self-control. She turned to face him fully. One small question revealed something no weapon ever could. Jake looked at the stars again. So, what? Now? Now humans are listed as a connector species, Lyra said. A bridge between cultures. Jake laughed softly. That sounds exhausting. It is, Lyra agreed. But it is also rare. A transport signal chimed softly in the distance. That's my ship, Lyra said. Jake nodded, feeling something heavy in his chest. Figures. She hesitated, then reached out and placed a small crystal disc in his hand. What's this? He asked. My final report, she said, unedited. In my own words. He closed his fingers around it. Lyra, he said, you could have studied anyone. I did, she replied. I studied a human who chose kindness when it was easier. Not to. They walked toward the docking bay together. Other species watched as they passed. Some bowed slightly. Some stepped aside in respect. At the bay, the ship's door opened. Lyra turned back one last time. Human Jake, she said. Do you regret answering my question? Jake thought about the fear. The danger. The choices. Then he smiled. No, he said. Next time I'll just explain it better. She laughed, a clear and warm sound. Good, she said. The universe has many questions left. She stepped into the ship. The door closed. The ship drifted away into the stars. Jake stood there for a long moment, then turned back toward the station, toward his ordinary job and his ordinary life. Except it wasn't ordinary anymore, because somewhere out there, entire civilizations now saw humans differently, not as monsters, not as mysteries, but as people, all because of one strange question and one very human answer.